Hey everyone. Feels like it's been a little while. I got a little busy with life and work and too much time trying to think about this top 10 list or my year end list, my favorites, what I would put on here. Sometimes for me, it's just like I feel like I don't spend enough time checking out new music. And then I get the end of the year comes and people make their lists, and I learn a lot. I mean, I listen to a lot of music around this time of year. I kind of look forward to it. To me, it's a lot like the movies. A lot of movie production houses, studios put out their best work at the end of the year, or they run it like once, in the theater at the end of the year, so it will qualify for the Academy Awards. They want everything to be very fresh and top of mind. And I get turned on to a ton of movies this time of year too. But yeah, so I'm not usually one that makes their list way ahead of time. I kind of like listen to things and get a little inspired, hopefully. So this year I have a list. It's sort of divided into 3 different areas. It's not super long, so I try to keep this video somewhat short. You're looking at my Christmas tree, our Christmas tree behind me, and I'm sitting in front of a fire. So this is very festive. And I'm going to turn this camera down so you can see our cat. This is one of our cats. This is Lenny. He's sleeping by the fire, and this is his first appearance in a video of mine. So anyway, all right. Been an interesting year. Oh, and by the way, I'm drinking one of my favorites, really. It's a ginger beer, mezcal, and lime. It's quite delicious. Highly recommended around this time of year, and frankly, any time of year. All right. First up, I have albums that I feel like I need to spend more time with. People are raving about them. I've listened to them, but I don't, maybe I'm not in the mood for them, or something's just not hitting me just right, but I have a feeling that if I spend a little bit more time with it, I might really like these records. And the first one I want to talk about is Superchunk's new one. Feels like they've been very productive lately. Songs in the Key of Yikes. I've tried to listen to this. I don't always, to be honest, like that kind of music, just the older I get, the less it does for me, and I don't even think to put it on. I feel like I need to have better grasp on it, but feels like something I could like if I spent a little bit more time with it. The second album in that category is Ryan Davis and the Roadside Band, their latest record. I like this, and I've played it all the way through, and I find it really interesting. The songs just seem to go on, and the lyrics are kind of crazy and out there, and it's sort of this alt country thing. It kind of reminds me of Daniel Romano when he goes that way. I need more time with it, though. It's something I think I could like. It took me a long time to like warm up to someone like MJ Lenderman. So hey, Ryan Davis and the Roadside Band, I'm going to give it a little bit more time. Can't really rate it on my list here, but I can say that it's something from last year, this year, that made an impression, something that I definitely do want to listen to more than I have. All right. Now we're going to get into a category. This is honorable mentions. It's kind of similar. In some of these records I haven't listened to a whole lot, but they're honorable mentions for one reason or another, and I think some of these could really grow on me. Maybe in a year from now or 2 years from now, I'll look back and I'll really, come to really like this record and consider these records and consider some of them the best of 2025. There's a band called Prune. Their album System. They really get that like 1990s PJ Harvey lo-fi thing down really well. I haven't spent a ton of time with it, but I like the sound of it. It got me in a really good mood when I listened to it. It's just, I like these bands. It seems like it's kind of coming back a little bit, of these like just rock bands that do a certain 90s aesthetic really well, but they make it their own. It's not like they're trying to totally recreate that time. But Prune is a band that definitely made an impression on me this year. I look forward to hearing more from Prune. I look forward to listening to System a lot more than I have in the last year. Another band that did that was Snowcaps. Now this is Katie Crutchfield's record. Her sister Allison, they were in bands early on together, and then Katie formed Waxahachie, and I think Allison works for a record label and isn't quite as active with the songwriting and the touring and the singing and all that. But they made an album together, and I really like the sound of this record. I really like the songs. I especially like the Allison songs because I don't hear that side or don't hear her that much. She used to be more of an active member in Waxahachie, although I don't know if she ever really wrote songs. But Snowcaps is a pretty cool record. I haven't listened to it a ton. I plan on listening to it a lot more. When I have listened to it, I've really enjoyed it. It's a certain aesthetic. Especially if you like Waxahachie, obviously you're gonna probably enjoy this. Sometimes I think, oh, it's too much, too much. She's releasing records fairly quickly, or at least in my mind, it seems like it. And she seems to have guessed on a lot of people's records, but that was my first take that maybe this is going to be a little too much. But I really enjoyed Snowcaps, and that's definitely an honorable mention for me. I was recently in Mobile, Alabama for a wedding. We had a pretty nice rental car, and we were there for 10 days. And when I was driving around, especially when I was hitting record stores, I fired up Caliphone's new record. Now, this is a band I haven't really thought of in a long time. Room Sounds was the one that I got into with them. I can't say they've ever been a favorite band, but I've always really appreciated Caliphone. And I started listening to it in this rental car, just driving around Mobile, Alabama, which can be quite gorgeous. The downtown is just super cool and old, and buildings just gorgeous old buildings. It seemed like every other house I went by, I was just like falling in love with it. And the whole area is pretty scenic, driving over the water over there, over the bridge between Alabama and Florida. And it sounds just like vintage Caliphone. I mean, to my ears, it sounds like they could have picked up, and this could have been a follow-up to Room Sounds or one of those records from the 90s. There was a John Prine cover in there that I found really interesting. And I almost thought that the Apple Music that I was listening to it on, that automatically went to another artist, because the vocals were way in the distance, and all of a sudden they're like way up front, and you hear this very conventional song. I didn't realize right away that it was a John Prine song. It wasn't one of his more famous ones, but I really enjoyed that, and I had the album kind of on repeat, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that record quite a bit. So if you haven't listened to Caliphone in a while, or if you're just curious about more experimental, kind of laid back, interesting music, I would check out Caliphone, The Villager's Companion, that came out earlier this year. Another record that came out earlier this year that I kind of, I listened to it a couple of times and I really liked it, and then I kind of forgot about it. And that's Craig Finn of the Hold Steady, his probably 5th or 6th solo record by this point. It's called Always Been. I was lucky enough to see Craig Finn with Patterson Hood, one of these storytelling kind of shows I love. The two people, they're on stage at the same time, they've been friends for years. Craig Finn actually cites Patterson Hood as being a major influence and actually inspired him. Seeing the Drive-By Truckers actually inspired him to form the Hold Steady. So pretty cool. My mind doesn't get much cooler than that. This is mutual admiration on stage. And then we'd trade off songs and go back and forth. And while I'd heard this Craig Finn record, and I've seen him solo a couple times, and I was a huge Hold Steady fan back in the day. I've seen him live and I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed seeing this material and his stories behind the songs, of course, which you get more of a storyteller environment. And it really opened up the record for me. I listened to it on the way home from that gig, and I've listened to it a few times since. I think it's one of his better records, and the storytelling is really, really great. It feels like he really kind of settles into his band, which I really like. So the Craig Finn record, Always Been, came out earlier this year, like March or April, but definitely worth listening to if you are not familiar with it, or if you forgot about it, or if you're a Hold Steady fan or Craig Finn fan and you just haven't listened to Craig Finn in a while. It's definitely worth listening to. Next up, we have a record that seems to be getting tons and tons of attention. The band's getting tons of attention. I don't know if it's just me and my Instagram. I happen to stumble upon a couple articles on them, or maybe listen to them, and who knows who's listening and how all that works. But interviews with them, performances with them, mentions of them, people saying they don't get it, people saying now they're the greatest band ever. All kinds of stuff around this record and this band. This band is Geese. The album is Getting Killed. This makes an honorable mention for me. John over the Digital Gramophone told me about this record, or he was hyping it up. And I was driving between here, I live outside of Seattle, and I think I had a dental appointment or something. I was going to town. And I was listening to it early in the morning, and I couldn't stand it. It drove me absolutely crazy. I was like, I don't understand this. And a lot of it for me, it's not the music. The music sounded cool. It was the guy's voice. It just took me forever to get over, and I'm still having trouble with it, to be honest, with his voice. But something happened with me just having that on kind of in the background, giving it a shot while I was doing other things, while I was working or whatever I was doing, having it on and hearing it over and over, where all of a sudden I became very intrigued by it and started paying closer attention. Now, I still don't, this isn't on my top 10 list, but I am giving it an honorable mention because I kind of like what they're doing. They're definitely exploring around with different genres, especially instrumentally. The songs don't really stick with me that much. I mean, it's a problem I have with a lot of new music, like where are the hooks? I'm not saying there aren't hooks on that record. I'm saying that they have yet to enter into my head where I have like songs I could sing or tell you about or quote lyrics. I'm not to that stage yet with Getting Killed, but I definitely respect this record and want to listen to it more. Don't totally get the hype, but I get it enough to make it an honorable mention. So, all right, let's get into it. This is the top 10. These are my top 10 records of 2025. Before we get into this, a little bit of commentary. I tend to think less is more. I am always looking for a record that I'm going to love so much, I'm going to play the shit out of it, and I'm not going to care about buying another record for a while because I am in love with that record. So I am clearly, and I find there's a couple of these in here, and I find that lately it's like music gets sort of treated like content, devouring it, more. I mean, I've seen Instagram videos or stuff on YouTube where I listened to 1,000 records last year, and here are my top 20. If you listened to 1,000 records last year, I don't want to hear your opinion because chances are you didn't like any of them enough to listen to them more than once or twice. Do you have to listen to 1,000 records in a year? Do you have to listen to 600 new records or 300? Not this guy. I listen to maybe 50. That's just me. Take it or leave it. You can duck out of my channel anytime. I would encourage you to stick around though. I enjoy doing this, and I do believe I have some good content. I would love it if you subscribed. Just plug in that. I hardly ever do, but if you do, it's no big deal either. I mean, I used to think when I was more watching videos instead of doing them, just watching them. Now I watch and do them. I thought, what's the big deal about subscribing? Like, I don't get it. Well, it just means it might pop up in your feed a little bit, maybe, on YouTube. But for me, I was always like, well, I can just look anybody up and I know who I like. Yeah. I mean, it becomes important when you're actually doing this. So if you haven't done it and you want to do it, that's awesome. Commercial break over for sure. Right. Top 10 list. No more breaks, no more pauses, no more Lenny cute cat moments, I don't think. Top 10. Stereolab, number 10. I didn't think Stereolab were going to make another record, and it was a real surprise that they made one, and that they made one as cool as instant holograms on metal film. I had seen them a couple years ago with Mazzy, and really cool experience just watching them up close. I think I saw them in the 90s. I have a ticket stub somewhere that says I do. I don't remember much about it, but I remember the show here being really good, and I was really excited that they actually had a new album. And for me, it's just pure like soundtrack, good times, summer music, kind of exotic, interesting. If you know Stereolab, you know Stereolab, and this was not a huge departure from what they've done in the past, but it was refreshing to get new Stereolab this year, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, and it got a lot of play. So that's my number 10, Stereolab, instant holograms on metal film. Next up is a album that frankly I was looking forward to maybe more than any other album this year. I think I mentioned it last year when my album of the year was by their lead singer, that I was expecting huge things from them, and maybe a year from now we'd be talking about their record. Well, we are. But I could also file this album under biggest disappointments of 2025, to be honest with you. But I'm going to think on the bright side here and the positives. But expectations were so huge, I guess for me personally, about this next record. This is Big Thief, and the album is Double Infinity. The album came out a few months ago. Advanced single is Incomprehensible, which I had heard a live version of that song and absolutely fell in love with it and was sharing it with people. We're telling people like this album, this new Big Thief album, when they ever get around to recording it, and there was no announcement, but I figured, they would they would be having a new album out this year, that this song and a couple others that I heard too, like this, based on this song and a couple others, this album was going to be absolutely incredible. And I loved that version of Incomprehensible. I thought it was Adrienne, some of her best songwriting. I was really disappointed when I actually heard the single, because it just seemed like they took everything that was cool about the song and sort of like sawed off the rough edges and gave it this kind of ethereal, atmospheric sound to it that really made the lyrics kind of floating around in space rather than being like this concrete, earthy thing that you really felt. And that's what I felt from the live performances. I've always felt like even when Adrienne Lenker does tend to go off and get a little flowery or cosmic or ethereal, whatever you want to call it, the Big Thief, the band, has always really grounded her. That guitar sound has always kind of kept things like grounded, the sound of the band. And they made an interesting choice for this record. It is my number 9, obviously. I do enjoy this record, but they recorded it much as a like collective of a bunch of different people on it. So it wasn't those core members. Their bass player had left. I think that was part of it. Max left, and they wanted to make something. They didn't know if they really wanted to replace him or anything like that. And so they made this album that is kind of ethereal and sort of feels one-dimensional, even though there's a bunch of people playing on it. It doesn't feel like a rock record the way that other Big Thief records feels like. It doesn't feel like an acoustic, more stripped down, interesting record like Dragon New Mountain, I Believe in You either. It has its own sound. It is an album of only 9 songs, but it tends to feel a little longer than its 9 songs. I don't know if it's always feels that way in a good way. The songwriting's great for the most part. I don't like some of the guest appearances. Some of them actually drive me nuts. And yeah, it's my number 9. It's Big Thief. It's Adrienne Lenker. She's one of our biggest talents. I cannot not put this album on my top 10, but I had reservations about it, and it comes in at number 9 for me. Number 8 surprised me. You know, I go down other people's lists and I see things, and sometimes I'm surprised that somebody put out a record, or people have a little paragraph about it if I'm reading something in print, which is, I think, where I found this. And, you know, I'll check it out. I'll listen to a couple songs usually, and, you know, I can tell usually if something's going to grab me or not. And this is Ben Kweller. Now, I hadn't even heard that name, Ben Kweller, in quite a long time. Popular in the early 2000s. I never got that into him, but of course I knew who he was. But there's something about this new record, Cover the Mirrors. It's got a kind of a crazy album cover. Reminds me with Done with Mirrors by Aerosmith, but somehow it works a little bit better than that one did, as far as the cover art. But it just, to me, it's like a return to like a classic singer-songwriter record, which I really like. I like a narrative record that's got hooks. It kind of sucks you in, and with the storytelling, with a narrative arc, with the songs, and you know, Ben Queller's been through a lot. I guess his son was in I believe a car accident and passed away. So you would think it'd be a really heavy record because this is the album that was made in the aftermath, but it's really not. There's another record I'm going to get into that explores grief as well. That one's a little heavier, but neither one of these records, especially this one, really feel the way that you might expect them to feel born out of tragedy like that. I've been listening to it a lot. Like I said, I did some traveling, and it was kind of playing on repeat, listening to a lot on headphones. Ben Kweller, Cover the Mirrors. At number 7, this artist kind of does tie in with an artist I mentioned earlier in the honorable mentions section. That was Craig Finn. This is Patterson Hood. Why do they tie in? Because they both were on a tour, kind of a storytelling tour, like I mentioned, both on stage at the same time, telling stories, talking back and forth, sharing stories behind the song, sharing personal stories and all that. Now, I had really gotten into this record before I saw this show, which was recently, and the album came out at the beginning of the year. Exploding Trees and Airport Screams. More of a personal record for Patterson Hood, kind of going back, I guess, quite a ways into his childhood. Some songs were written a long time ago, some were written more recently. It's one of these Patterson Hood records. I like the last one, too, that he did. It's got just these very interesting stories if you lean into it a little bit. It sounds great. It sounds like a really good record, but I find that if you get out the lyric sheet and you like lean into these stories a little bit. Don't listen to it so passively. It comes alive, and the instrumentation is great. It sounds like it was made with a lot of love. It's a more stripped down, more personal side of Patterson Hood. He was quoted in some articles saying that he's found that he puts those type of songs on Drive By Truckers records, but they never get played live because it's more of a rockin' kind of affair, and so he saved some of them and put out this record. Now I love the more stripped down Drive By Truckers moments and slow songs in concert. So I hope that it's not like all like one or the other going forward with them. So at number 7, Patterson Hood, Exploding Trees and Airport Screams. What a title, and crazy album artwork too. A few weeks back, I was really fortunate enough to see Mavis Staples play live. It was with Jeff Tweedy. It was for KXP radio station here in Seattle. Benefit for them. Pretty damn good seats because I don't think the bots were eating up stuff at that show. See my Ticketmaster rant previous video if you want to enjoy me going off on that kind of stuff. It was a great show. It was an incredible show, and it was so cool to see Mavis Staples be so positive and belt out songs and get everybody on their feet. She didn't play a whole like long set. She would get a little winded and sit down and come back. But a powerful, powerful voice up there. Made all the more powerful by the fact that she has a killer new album out. So at number 6, Mavis Staples' Sad and Beautiful World. I'm not a person that buys every Mavis Staples record. I did enjoy the one she did with Tweedy several years back. And this one really caught my interest. Hey, it's kind of unusual to have like an 88-year-old woman release a new record. There's Mavis Staples, just who she is. There's also the fact that the album is named off a song that is a Sparkle Horse song, a Mark Linkhouse song. So right away I'm like, wow, she's being steered in some cool directions by somebody for material. And it wasn't just Sparkle Horse. She covers a lot of current artists, older artists. Just a wild, on paper wouldn't work kind of a list of songwriters on there or artists that she covers, but it just works flawlessly as a record. Really strong. It's kind of amazing she sings as well as she does. Of course, I like that Sparkle Horse song. One of the songs on there that I really like is Everybody Needs Love. It was written by Eddie Hinton. I think it came out in 1978 or so. And I know it because of the Drive By Truckers. I just mentioned Patterson Hood. They covered it on their album, Go-Go Boots. I get that in the Big To Do because they came out like the same year, although I highly prefer Go-Go Boots. One of my favorite Drive By Truckers records, but that's another story. She does a killer version of this, Everybody Needs Love, and the album itself is great. Killer version of Tom Waits' Chicago, which at first I was like, why would you cover that song? I always thought of it as sort of a maybe a little obnoxious Tom Waits song of his last album. I hope it's not his last album, but it is right now. Bad As Me. But she really makes it her own, and the lyrics come out. I've been meaning to listen to the Tom Waits regular version again and see if that speaks to me in a different way after hearing such a great interpretation. But yeah, Mavis Staples, Sad and Beautiful World. That's my number 6. I don't know what it is about Chicago lately. It just seems like they're pumping out like a lot of really cool bands. And one of them that has definitely captured my attention probably a year ago or maybe really early in 2025, and certainly now with the release of yet another record by the same band, is the band Sharp Pins. This guy, he's in Lifeguards as well. He writes these records by himself. He records these records by himself. I'm going to put his name on the screen here so you see it. Kind of a one-man affair as far as recording and writing the record. He really makes this world where it feels like you're spinning a long-lost Beatles record and your favorite Guided by Voices record, but yet it's something totally its own too. Unbelievable how this guy comes up with melodies after melodies after melodies, kind of the way we used to talk about Guided by Voices, Robert Pollard. But also some of these hooks, some of these melodies sound so much like the Beatles too. I mean, really have to listen to it to understand what I'm saying. But Radio DDR was the first one that came out. That was at the beginning of the year. And there's a brand new one, out maybe a month, called Balloon, 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 which I'm also really getting into. So kind of a toss-up. I'm considering them one for the purposes of this one. If I had to say one or the other, I would probably go with Radio DDR, mostly because I've lived with it for a whole year. So that's why it makes my, top 10, top 5. But Balloon, Balloon, Balloon is really, really great too. So can't wait to see that band live. I know I think they played some festival here once, but yeah, still looking to see them. Have not seen them so far. Number 5, Radio DDR by Sharp Pins, and also the brand new record, Balloon, Balloon, Balloon. Check that. Number 4, an artist that I've been into for quite a while. Maybe not as much as some other people. I'm not an obsessive, but I really enjoy Bonnie Prince Billy, Will Oldham, Palace Brothers, Palace. Going back to like 1996, I always been interested in this guy or followed him to one degree or another. I don't know if he's ever put out an album quite so cohesive and is addictive as The Purple Bird. Great record from earlier this year. Had it spinning a lot. Kind of a more modern, conventional country, alt country record. Some would complain the songs are a little slicker, the production's a little slicker. I honestly think that's just what he needs, and really enjoyed this record. Really interested to see what he comes up with next. There's major drama in the world of alt country. We're sort of the king and queen of alt country, George and Tammy of modern times, separating and getting divorced. Having so many songs, especially from one of them, written about the other one, that I think a lot of us hold very dear to our hearts, and it sucks when they break up and then you start to just question things when you hear these such pure songs, and you know that the backstory or whatever, the relationship ultimately didn't turn out. Of course, you can find this everywhere in pop music and country music and all that, but sentiment's still there. These songs become our own. I'm not going to stop listening to Cover Me Up anytime soon, and enjoying Southeastern and other songs. Of course, I'm talking about Jason Isbell and Amanda Shires. Jason put out a record, so did Amanda. Jason's record came out first, called Foxes in the Snow, all acoustic. Electric Ladyland Studios, Butthole Surfers, where'd that come from? Electric Ladyland Studios in New York is where Jason Isbell just had killer guitars and sat in a chair and had probably the best microphones money can buy and played a set of songs and had it recorded. And man, I don't understand why this album isn't higher for some people. Maybe they get caught up in all the drama and they're just take sides or whatever, but I have found this album to be absolutely incredible. I was not immediately taken by it. It's one of those records, honestly, and I try not to be like a vinyl snob. It was one of those records that streaming didn't quite do it for me, but when I got it on vinyl and I put it on the turntable, it had such warmth and the acoustic guitar sounded so good in his voice. I just really started getting into these stories. It's not only a song series, a song cycle of songs about falling out of love and divorce. It's also a song cycle about rediscovery of love and meeting a new person. So it's the rare record that I think really straddles the line there, and it really allows you to kind of see things 360. To realize it's a continuum, and I don't know. I found myself really enjoying the record. I played it a lot this year. Jason Isbell's Foxes in the Snow, acoustic record, beautiful record, heartbreaking record, and also a kind of optimistic record, all in one. And number 2, this record kind of took me by surprise. Now, one of my favorite bands was Low. Loved Low, loved watching them transition from being an extremely quiet, so quiet. I've told this story before. I used to rep them in Minneapolis. I worked for their label, and I would go see these shows in 94, 95, 96, where it was so quiet. in such small places that when it came time to like order a drink, and this is when you still had cash in your pocket, you felt like you were making I'm not exaggerating, like you were like making too much noise when you reached for coins in your pocket and dollar bills and stuff, because it was so quiet between notes, and that was kind of their thing. And then watching them evolve, and eventually, I mean, just the beauty would come out. I mean, I always loved the core dynamic between Alan and his wife Mimi. Their songwriting, mostly his songwriting, but her vocals, and watching them over all the years. And in fact, the last album they ever did, I've had videos about that. I just think they went off on such a high note. They knew she had cancer. I don't know if they knew how aggressive it was or how much time she had, but unfortunately she did pass away. And Alan Sparhawk initially the first thing he released was this album called White Roses, which is kind of an extreme continuation of where they were going with Hey What, and Double Negative, where it's digital manipulation, distortion. But this is like vocoder stuff. You can't hardly understand a word about it. Frankly, I didn't have the patience for it. I couldn't stand it. I'm just being honest. It certainly did not make my top 10 or anything like that, and I was really disappointed in it. I wish I could get into that stuff. I don't find it enjoyable or engaging for me at all. Maybe they'll come around sometime. I kind of doubt it. But I knew that he had another album he was working on, a more conventional record. It had been mentioned in the press. And so this year we got to hear that. We got to hear that more conventional record. Now some of these songs are actually kind of repeated from that White Roses record. Of course, you can understand the lyrics. He uses his friends Trampled by Turtles, another Duluth band, Duluth, Minnesota, been around forever, kind of a bluegrass band. They've toured with Lowe, or they've definitely been friends and in that circle with Lowe, also from Duluth, for quite some time. And it just sounds like such a natural meeting of catharsis of these two, of Alan Sparhawk coming together with his friends, and I think they were really close friends, and Trampled by Turtles, and writing this album that really does tackle what it's like to lose somebody, and these very intense things, but with such beauty and grace. And there's a song on here where the violins do something that is so incredibly emotional and extreme that it's almost painful to listen to. Although I would not say the whole album you could play the album and it does not seem like, I'm listening to a song about somebody who's grieving and talking about their spouse who passed away. It does not feel that way necessarily, but there is a moment in there where it's just so unbelievable. I almost started, I think I laughed the first time because it was so intense for me. And now I just so appreciate what Trampled by Turtles brought to this artist, in the best meaning of the word, Alan Sparhawk, and allowed him to do. And really look forward to other things that Alan's going to do. I feel like maybe this was, kind of getting it all out there, these two records. But this album is gorgeous. Trampled by Turtles with Alan Sparhawk. Check it out if you have not. There's a reason why it's this high up on my list. And I think it's just absolutely incredible. So, number one, if you watch this channel a lot, you might have guessed what it is. I have been a fan of this artist since 1995. I did not really get into his original band as much as everybody else did, but I ended up seeing his new band open up for Pavement in 1995. I'm talking about Wilco. I'm talking about Jeff Tweedy. And that was cool, and I liked AM quite a bit. I'm not going to give you the whole step by step, but being there totally blew me away. I had a friend that worked at a record store, brought over a promo on vinyl, double vinyl, and I played it, and there was no turning back. Absolutely fell in love with this band. And it's been really interesting to follow Wilco and Jeff Tweedy through the years. I remember thinking back in 97, 98, 99, wow, this is an artist we could have for quite some time. This is an artist that we could grow with. We might have for our whole lives. And it was like, okay, here's this guy that's really interesting, super talented. And as he would put out Summer Teeth and Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, I started to really think about that, about how this guy could really be around. So it's just so interesting all these years later. I mean, some Wilco albums hit harder than others for me. Some of them I could almost take it or leave it, although I buy them all and I try to make myself like them. There's always something, of course, and each one I'm going to love. But Cruel Country was a real highlight for me. That came out a few years ago. That is way up there with any Wilco record, really. I absolutely love that record. And he released something this year, and he talked about it ahead of time. And he said it was going to be 3 records. Now, when I first heard about solo Jeff Tweedy, that was going to be a 3-record set, I'm thinking of Warm and Warmer and Love is a King. Now, those are good solo records, but for me, they don't have a ton of staying power. I don't pull those out and listen to them that much. I enjoy hearing a song here and now from them. When I do pull them out, I tend to like them. But they were never records that I spun over and over and over and really got to know and love and kind of, became part of me. I saw Jeff Tweedy recently, which I mentioned earlier in this video, and there was one song that he played off of one of those records, off Warm, and I had to go back and see which record it was from. Now, normally, with Wilco records, I would know that immediately, but that just shows, how I don't necessarily, get into these solo records as much. So I was not super optimistic about Twilight Override when it was announced. I love the idea of it, though, that this was a record that would sort of be a catharsis for these crazy times we're living in and allow you to sort of dive into something different. And I like that a lot. I like that idea. And I must say, the singles that came out, one after another, advanced singles, I loved every single one of them. And I'm like, something's going on here. Something's clearly going on here. And found that the songwriting was just sharper. I really liked the sound of the band. It didn't sound like solo Tweedy as much as a new band. And this is a band that's composed of his sons, Sammy on keyboards and background vocals quite a bit, maybe some other instruments, and Spencer, who's been playing drums with Jeff on his solo stuff for quite a while and actually played on a Mavis Staples record that I kind of referenced earlier in this video. And I loved all those singles. Lou Reed Was My Babysitter, Enough, Feel Free, all of them that I heard I really liked. So I ordered this record. I'm not going to get like a Wilco record or a Jeff Tweedy record, but I have been, and I continue to be amazed by these 3 records. Now, some people are like, oh, it's so much material. Like, how can you listen to that? It's like just way too much. Like, why didn't you just condense it and make one record? I think, he said early on, like, some records of mine feel longer than this one to listen to. I agree. I agree that maybe some of those other solo records might actually feel kind of longer, where we're longer in the way that I might want to get up and change the record a little bit, or maybe skip a song, which I seldom do. I tend to play records all the way through. This new records, Twilight Override, I can't tell you how many times I played it all the way through, all 3 discs. I mean, at least 9 or 10 times by now. And it works. It works really well. It's a beautiful record. I can't think, some people are like, oh, they compare it to the White Album or Sandinista. The only reason you're comparing to that is because of its length. Because one thing that I thought this record would be more like Sandinista or more like the White Album, where it'd be eclectic. Now it's eclectic, but I mean, full of different styles and experiments. Not really. I mean, a little bit, but it all sounds kind of the same in the best possible way. There are Wilco records, there are Jeff Tweedy records, there are records by my favorite band. Most records, I could probably find a song that I would toss out if like somebody said, which song would you kill? I probably would find one that I would kill, or one on my own that I'd be like, oh God, I kind of wish this song wasn't on the record. It interrupts the flow or whatever. I have yet to find that in a triple record. Now, part of this is like I said, there is sort of a sameness to it. Like, again, though, in the best possible way. These are really personal songs. I can understand the lyrics. One of the problems I had with Jeff Tweedy around the time of Ode to Joy was I didn't know what he was singing about. Okay, and I read his book, World Without Song, or something. Maybe that's a different one. The one where he talks about songwriting and how to write one song. I was totally kind of taken aback by this whole cut-up William Burroughs type approach. But it kind of made sense why some of those Wilco records didn't resonate with me. This record totally, like every song feels personal. Every song feels like there's a story there. And I just get more and more out of it every time I hear it. And I am in love with his backing band, his band. I love the vocal harmonies. There's so much richness to this material if you give it time and you come back to it. And don't think of it as like this enormous like undertaking. I mean, for the longest time, I still do. I just pick a record and put it on. But there's been a number of times, like I said, where I played it all the way through and I don't get tired of it. I mean, it's just a great record to have in the background, and it's a killer record to sit down with and really listen to. There's lots of interesting guitar stuff going on there. Like I said, the background vocals are just gorgeous. The drumming, the rhythm section I love. It's such a breath of fresh air. It sounds great. It really is a balm for these absolutely bonkers, crazy depressing times we live in. And he tackles some of that in the lyrics, but more than anything, I think it's more like personal stories, a deep dive into life and various experiences, and like tons of observations. And it feels so 2025 in the best kind of way. And it's definitely my number one album of the year, for sure. It is my number one. There's so much more here than you might think there is. I would encourage you, if you listen to it once or twice and kind of put it away, or if you haven't checked it out at all, to listen to my favorite albums of the year, and that is Twilight Override by Jeff Tweedy and his amazing band. All right, I think I'm gonna do some other videos. Maybe I'll do box sets. I don't buy a ton of box sets, but I think, or box sets and reissues, maybe I'll combine them. And there's a vinyl challenge coming up. Try to make content a little bit more regularly. I've sort of fell off there for a couple weeks. Encourage anybody, like I said, who hasn't subscribed, please do. It helps. It's obnoxious when we say it. We're horrible at being our own pitch man. You know, I can do that. I do that for work, right? I'm in advertising, so I can come up with ad campaigns and for just about anything. But you asked me to talk about myself, and I have a little bit of trouble there. Anyway, happy holidays to all of you. Really appreciate the way that I'm able to talk to you and get to know some of you and have this relationship, even though it's two-dimensional. It feels very real to me. I think a lot of people get that. There's a reason why a lot of us do these channels, because we do get something significant out of it. And I definitely get that. And I appreciate each and every one of you that comments, that watches this, that tells a friend, whatever. Thank you very much.